So, some people seem to be under the impression, by mere words and speeches, that President Trump has somehow closed the purse strings of the United States, being a part of giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the United Nations, which amounted to a lot of speech and not action. And those lasting words that were merely words, that were not followed through with any concrete action at all, are what seem to ring in the collective imagination of people in America, or at least some of them. Now, if you trace the line back to April 12th, 2017, you'll see here, the Trump administration is mad and they're threatening to cut off this funding and starve out those parts of the systems that work to keep Americans safe and secure. Members of the Safety Council pay a premium for our veto vote, and this will stop, and will stop all funding to the UN. And articles like this, the UN needs a funding review. So April 12th, 2017, right? And I abhor politics so much because it's such a game of lying. I mean, how long have we had an ongoing joke that there's two people you can't trust? Used car salesmen and politicians. And yet, you have mass media brainwashing otherwise intelligent human beings to give them a facade. So this was well over 2 years ago. We're going to find out, did this actually happen? Or was it nothing more than an empty threat with words? I don't want to spend a ton of time on these articles. They irritate me. But there was the threat all the way back here. We're going to cut off your funding. Oh, cower in fear. There is this idea that Trump is anti-globalist. He's not having it. He's not involving our country in things that wouldn't be good for us. I mean, he's got a branded hat and MAGA and everything. Make America great again. And therefore, we must believe the hype and the words and the empty, uh, meaningless mantra to cover up what's actually happening. So if you kind of just skim this thing, this was what was said. Oh, there it is. There's the hellhole there, right there. Members of United Nations Security Council sit during their meeting on Syria at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Wait a minute. Their headquarters are in New York? Yeah. So for those that believe that we've been mean to the United Nations and we have taken a stiff upper lip, we are not having this globalism. That's funny because they're in our soil. And I'm sorry if I sound a little bit irritated, and I am, but there is a complete and utter murder of logic and reasoning happening in people because they just have their ears tuned to the TV and the media, and whatever the media tells you, you just drink it down and go, yep, the media said so, that must be. That is not the truth. So let's actually deal with the content that's truly happening here so that we don't just act like an army of mindless robots that follow along behind Trump going, yep, Trumpy's for us, Trumpy's for us. So they're on our soil. They have a permanent headquarters on our soil. Do you understand that? Do you understand the implications of that? It's a, we own you. We own you. Yeah. I'll make sure in the video I will put a copy of this. But if you're just kind of skimming this, because I can't deal with going over this whole stupid lie from the pit of hell. Trump has openly talked about being friends with globalist Henry Kissinger, rather. And it's those little quotes that people just seem to completely ignore because you have the media in your ear telling you what to think, what to believe, what opinions to form. But see, this is just all hype. This is nothing more than empty words. It's not up to the United States on the basis of political will to pick and choose when and whether we pay up on our full commitments. We're locked into this thing. This is not something that Trump has ever gotten us out of. Never. And I'm going to show you. So, again, this big, long, obnoxious, irritating article. Okay, that's just weird. This is supposedly for peacekeeping, don't you know? But if you sit back in your brain and you think about how many wars and things are actually happening right now, there is no peacekeeping. This is nothing more than taking a big giant pot of money and filling it from all the different nations that basically don't have a choice. And your president is in the same boat as everybody else. There is no America going it alone and saying that we're just not going to pay the United Nations. This is nothing more than the TV fodder that people forget Trump is an actor. Do you get that? He's an actor who's been given a scripted role as a Mason to do whatever the people over him want him to do. So there's that article. I can't really stand going through any more of this because it's such a big giant lie. But we do have UN here. If what Dave Hodges and others have been saying is accurate and correct, they're already here and they're waiting for something. They're waiting to flip us, which I don't know if you're biblically minded or not because I don't know who you are. But they're waiting for something. Now look at this. Look at this. Look at this word, considering. Considering, which means it hasn't been done. It's just something he was thinking about doing. Third, the Trump administration is reportedly considering slashing humanitarian funding. Look at this. The United States has historically been the most generous humanitarian donor in the world. And as a result, U.S. funding helps keep the international humanitarian system afloat. We're in this thing. They're stealing our money by virtue of our government sending it off to them, collecting our tax funds and sending it off to a foreign entity who, as we've already noted, is here permanently on our soil. So all of these things go together. You also, on a whole nother topic, you have the UN crafting plans to bring the entire world underneath their banner of control and their policies, things that would be very much against the Christian worldview. I don't know if you know that or not. I don't know if you do your studies or if you just drink down whatever is mama bird puked in your mouth from the TV. But now let's back it up here for a second. So that was 2017, right? Well, let's go here. Visualize the world's funding for the United Nations. President Trump likes to argue that other countries should pay more to fund international groups. Blah, blah, blah. Among other things, this has meant decreasing the money the U.S. spends on, on the UN. So that's the idea. We decided to dig beneath the headlines to uncover exactly, let's highlight it, how much money different countries and continents contribute to the UN. As it turns out, the president has a good point about how much Americans contribute compared to everyone else. United Nations budget contributions. I don't want to highlight the whole thing. By country. And what's the date? What's the date on this? 2019er. This is what's actually happening. 2019. Oh, look at that. My gosh, my eyes are just like practically plucked out from how big this section of this pink on the globe of being the largest contributor to this demonic group of entities at the UN. Look at that. United States annually, six 6,074. Oh, how do you say that number? It's a little early. 22% of the whole entire total. Okay, 674.2 million. Sorry, that took me a minute. She's feisty, but she has a moment of weakness. But anyhow, as you can see, in connection with all the rest of these nations, we're still paying them. Do you understand that? Your belief that Trump has somehow closed the purse strings is nothing more than a manufactured lie. And if I sound irritated, it's because I care for the truth. And I just find it so frustrating that there are others out there that aren't willing to even do the slightest ounce of research. And yet you will base your thoughts and opinions off of a soundbite from 2.5 years ago that never went through. Can you explain that to me? Is that not sloppy? I'm sorry, but so the US contributes hundreds of millions more than any other country in support of the UN, providing some 22%. We saw that. He compares some other I'm not going to go over all of this, but I am establishing that we're still in it. We're still having our money taken from us. And there was a link on here to show where this was coming from. So this is the United Nations Secretariat. This was compiled the 24th of December 2018. Okay? So this is the most recent information, and this is like their budget forecast for 2019, which we're in right now, which we're almost ready to end this year, which means we've already given, what was that figure? Anyhow, hundreds of millions of dollars to these vipers. And when you look through their millennium goals, number 16 doesn't allow for Christians to practice their religion because, according to them, it's intolerant. So you have us being forced to pay money that Trump is writing off a check every year so that eventually the United Nations can become so powerful at some point in time that the things the Bible said would come true and they would be able to persecute us for our faith. Do you understand that? I hope so. Now, do you go over all these figures? I'll put all these links so that you can look at them yourself because I'm kind of going through them fast here. They actually put us at the very end. Now, they're actually putting this in dollars. That's funny because out of all these countries, hundreds of countries here, they're actually going to put this in the dollars because we're the ones that give more than anyone. So you skim down, we're at the very end. Here we go. Well, Uruguay is at the very end, but United States of America, there's 22%. There's the 674 million Actually, it's more than that. That's just rounding it off. I mean, you might as well just, well, anyhow, those are the figures. That's where it all ends up being. Now, we actually just had the UN on our soil, and I have videos that I did. Maybe you're not aware of those. Maybe you're not aware that the UN, just this September last month, was here and they were holding meetings and they were talking about all of the international countries together have to come together into one, and much more was said.